world, it makes it pretty hard to take care of yourself, doesn't it? It's like there's a million, everybody wants your time. There's a million things you're supposed to do. We wake up in the morning and before we even brush our teeth, we look at our emails. Like there's so much constantly coming at us. And it's like you're go, 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 go. And then we wonder why we get burnt out. We wonder why we get sick. We wonder, like, why am I so exhausted? Why do I feel stuck or lost? And it's because we're not refueling, right? So thank you for saying that. What else?
Keep spreading it.
To keep spreading it. Thank you. Yeah, right? Like, how many of you know someone who is just so negative? Like, thank you in the back. She raises her hand, you know. And usually we're related to that person, right? Like the one that you can't, like, I have to answer the phone, right? So the majority of people are walking around, unfortunately, so negative all the time. And I'm not saying that you're gonna have a rosy, sunshiny day every day. I don't. People ask me all the time, Karen, are you always happy? I'm like, no, why do you think I teach this? You know, because we teach that which we have to learn, right? And so I've got my own really, Mari and I go way back, and very quickly we talked about my stepson, and he's had a really rough time. He's 18, and it's been a challenging time. So I've had, you know, a year ago I had my second miscarriage. Like, life is not always easy, right? But a big piece of happiness is, what do we do with all the challenges, all the negativity? How do we overcome it? How do we struggle well? And then how do we pass it on to other people? So good. Thank you. One more. Why are you here? I know that I heard more.
Happiness is what matters most. Why we do all the things are happy.
Thank you. You get a gold star. What's your name?
Edward.
Edward. Happiness is what matters most. Now, question, how many of you got a happiness class in school? Like, anyone? In the back? Happiness class, school? No? And we laugh, right? So how many of you are parents? And what do you want for your kids? Happy and healthy, right? They get a little health. I think we could use a lot of improvement on the health education in school too. The number one thing we want for our kids is to be happy, and yet nobody is teaching them how. What do they learn in school? How to follow instruction. How to get an A. Because if you get an A, you'll get a good job out of high school, or you'll go to a good college. If you get a good job, you go to a good college, then you'll make a decent salary. And if you make a decent salary, then you'll be able to buy a home. And if you buy a home, then right? It's like we have this whole thing that at some point down the line, you'll be happy because you were sitting in 7th grade math class, wanting to get your perfect A. So we have this thing that we desperately want in our society, and yet no one has told us how to get it. I grew up on Disney movies. Anyone else? And Disney said, as a little girl, I should what? Marry a prince. And then I would be? Yeah, happily ever after, right? Now, so I followed what I was supposed to do, and my parents have been happily married for 53 years. They've been together since they were 14. My grandparents, who were Holocaust survivors, are now no longer with us, but they were married for 68 years. So I had a pretty clear vision of what this would look like. And briefly, my story is, so when I went to college, I went to get my MRS degree. Has anyone heard of your MRS degree, right? I was going to college to find my Prince Charming. I found him, 6'2", dark hair, green eyes, chiseled cheeks, studying to be a lawyer. Yes, you know, like I win. Got married at 22, and we bought our first home by the time I was 24. And everything looked, what was the reason I got all those A's when I was a kid, right? I had a budding marketing career. And yet, this is actually how I looked almost every day. I would cry myself to sleep almost every night because my husband got so sick of me being unhappy. I just kept telling him, I just feel like I'm here for something more. I feel like I'm stuck. I feel like I'm lost. I'm just not happy. And he would say, we're happy. Look at all of the things that we have. And I understand, it's not that those things were bad, you know, season football tickets to the school up north, because that's where I'm from. And, you know, and make Thanksgiving dinner and all that kind of stuff. But I was inside. I felt so lonely. Inside, I felt like I don't know who I am. Like I'm here for something, for some sort of purpose, and I was not happy, and so we got divorced at 26. This is not a talk about divorce. We can do that over the wine later. But I went on my journey to say, if the Disney movie didn't make me happy, what would? And it's not that you can't be happy in the Disney movie, because I am remarried, and I live in a house, and all the things that I had when I was married the first time. The difference is that many years later, I went on a journey to say, who am I? What actually makes me happy? If I step back and I am feeling like I'm having a rough day, what are my tools and techniques to actually get me back? What ultimately are my dreams in life? Like, really? I am shameless about telling you my desires. I intend on having a beach house. I intend on traveling the world. I'm going to go live in Paris for a month this year. Like, I am shameless about my desires, because we're on this life, as far as I know, once in this body. And so I had to step back and say, who am I? What jazzes me up? What juices me up? What do I love? And do that. And it doesn't mean you have to get divorced or leave your job or any of it to do it. But you do have to actually step back and say, what is happiness to me? Because the gentleman in the middle said it perfectly. What are you doing it for if not to be happy? So I began volunteering with high school girls, and then began volunteering with other divorced women, and found this love of empowering women to know who they are and love themselves and go for their dreams. And I was like, this is what I'm meant for. And I was living here in Cleveland, and I actually was vice president of marketing at Team Neo, the regional economic development firm. And I had this like calling, like I want to be empowering people, and I just didn't know how to turn it into a career, what to do. And then one day I was coming home. I had a condo in Shaker Square, and someone followed me home. I was on a bad blind date and talking about it on the phone with my sister. Oh my God, he was so awful, and blah, 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 blah. And I go to put my key in the condo door, and then suddenly I felt hot breath on my neck. And I turned around, and I am now nose to nose with a very sad-looking young man. And he looks at me, and I look at him, and I'm like, are you going inside? I thought maybe he's visiting a friend or his aunt or somebody. And he looks into my eyes for an extra second, and then he looks down at my belly and pulls a gun. And I scream, and I fall to the floor, and my hands are over my head, and going, please don't hurt me, please don't hurt me, please don't hurt me. And like these moments from my life, like my 8th birthday party, like flash in front of my eyes, as cheesy as that sounds. I don't know if any of you have had like an end-of-life moment. And I suddenly had this moment, I was gonna die without living all of my desires. I was gonna die without going to Paris for a month, or without writing a book I've wanted to write, or without doing everything I could to empower people. I was gonna die with my dreams in my heart, and that was the most depressing thought I could possibly have. So I said in that moment, while I'm screaming, please don't hurt me, if I live, I made a promise to God, call it source, universe, whatever you personally want to call it, energy, and I said, if you let me live, I promise I will pursue that purpose. And exactly at that moment, the man took my purse and he ran. So my question to you, friends, as I go through the rest of this talk, and afterwards, I want to be on your shoulder for the rest of your life. Karen Rockine sitting on your shoulder. If there was a gun pointed at your head, what would you regret never having done? If there was a gun pointed at your head, what would you regret never having done? Because whatever is the answer to that question is where your happiness is going to lie. If you would regret that you didn't put the meaningful over the presumably urgent on the phone, right? The time with your kids, or the going to, England to trace your roots. Let that question sit with you. Because what I ended up doing after I survived is I said, I'm going to learn whatever I can to really empower people to really know what makes them happy and go teach it. And so I ended up finding out about this field called positive psychology. How many of you have heard of positive psychology? Okay, so a small handful in the room, that means that I've got a lot of work to do. Yes, right? Right, because I work for myself now, and that's good. So positive psychology, let's talk about this. What is the most asked question in the world? Why am I here is asked a lot, but this one's asked even more. What else? Are you okay is asked a lot. What else? How are you? How many times today have you said how are you to somebody, right? We say it all day long, and what do most people respond? Good. Or this one, fine. Anyone ever respond, fine, okay. Now, on a scale of -10 to +10, where is fine, good? Where is that? A 0, might be 0. Maybe a 2, a 3. Now, parents again, who are my parents? And even if you don't have kids, maybe you have a niece or a nephew, I do. What do you want for those people? Do you want them living, the little ones in your life? How many of you want them to be your kids or your niece, nephew, your friend's kids? How many of you want them to grow up and live at a 2? Come on, doesn't a 3 sound awesome? No, what do you want for them? 10. You want a 10. You want them living at a +8, +9, +10 as often as they can. So since the beginning of time, like, why do we go to a psychologist? Because we're below a 0, right? We're feeling a -2, -3, right? And so we go to a psychologist, and I am all for psychologists, been there many times. When I had my miscarriage, was right back in that office, okay? So we go there to come back to a baseline 0, and that's awesome. Positive psychology, though, takes a different, the idea is that psychology, since the beginning of time, has studied, well, actually since World War II and soldiers were coming back with PTSD and things, psychology had studied what's wrong with people. Depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder. And 20 years ago, a very famous professor at the University of Pennsylvania was president of the American Psychological Association, and he said to the field at large, folks, we've done a disservice. We have focused so much on illness that we have forgotten about wellness. Now, if you don't have cancer, are you healthy? Necessarily? You don't have cancer. Not necessarily, maybe. Right? Because why? What do you have to do to be healthy? What's that? Eat right, work out. Right? So, positive psychology, this scientific study of human flourishing, is a scientific study of what makes somebody at a +8. What would a +6 look like for you? How do we get you from a +2 to a +7? Sounds pretty good, right? So when this famous professor at Penn, which is an Ivy League university, just to kind of give you the sense, put this idea into the psychological field, into the field of psychology, all of a sudden, all over the world, people started pouring money and research into saying, what would a +6 look like? What are the factors that make life well lived? And now we know. And that's more of what I want to share with you. So the deal is that the absence of illness is not wellness. Just because you're not clinically depressed or with PTSD doesn't mean you're living at the +8. I'm not asking you to live at a +10 all the time. I'm asking you, what would it take to live at a +8? What is the equivalent of the salad for your mental health? What's the equivalent of the treadmill for your emotional health? And these are the things, how many of us ever stop to really think about that, right? So this is what positive psychology is all about. And we might say, well, why do we need this field? Why do we need this? Well, I want to take you back to the late 90s. Does anyone remember the economy of the late 90s? What was it?
Well, there was the dot-com crash.
Right before the dot-com crash, there was a dot-com boom.
Yes.
Right? I personally had been out of college for 2 years at that point, and a friend of mine said, I'm going to work for this guy that just sold his dot-com for $20 million. Come on. And I was like, I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to be running around the house thinking that, right? So I did. I left my steady job to go do this, and 3 months later, the company went under. The dot-com boom, we had more money as a Western society. I'm not talking about, obviously there are lots of nations, lots of people who don't, but we had more money. So income was up, standard of living was up. Now what does our Western world tell us will make us happier? Money, success, get the A, and then you'll be happy. So we are at a time at late 90s, 1998, the world has more money, has better standard of living, we'll just say here in America. At the same time, according to the Gallup organization, happiness had flatlined. And even worse, guess what was on the rise? Suicide, depression. Depression has been on the rise. Some of that may be that people are more comfortable reporting it, which is great. But some of that is that we're living lives that don't necessarily make us happy. And so we have this idea, right? What's going to lead to this happiness? And we kind of have to shift it. Unfortunately, the average onset of depression now hovers. How many of you have teenagers? Average onset of depression hovers just below 14 years old at this point. And we can all see with social media and everything else, it's not getting better, but social media is not going away, so we need some other tools. And this is what I went ahead and studied to say, okay, we think that, this is like a chart that it's not to scale, but we think you're going along in life and you think that falling in love is going to make you happier, and it does. Oh my God, I fell in love. This is so great. And then like maybe 6 months later, he starts leaving his socks on the floor, or she starts leaving her socks on the floor, or they start, whatever it is, whichever pronoun. And all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I love this person, but, and we go back to baseline 0. And then all of a sudden someone passes away in our family, and you go below 0. But then what happens? You come back. Might take time, but you come back. Humans adapt. So we actually have to understand how our brain works and be able to work with happiness and be able to understand it. Our society has said that success will make you happy. Now, how many of you want a $10,000 raise? Go ahead. I do. I mean, please, I do. Come on. Right? Will it make you happy? For a little bit, it will. Right? If I got a $10,000 raise, you better be, yeah, baby, we're going out to dinner, And then you realize that $10,000, they take out taxes, they split it between 12 months, your car breaks down, and pretty much there it goes. Or you upgrade your house. You're like, oh, now we get a bigger house. And then all of a sudden you have a bigger house, and now you've just got more stuff. So I'm not saying don't go for the raise. I told you I'm going to go live in Paris for a month this year. It's more to understand, in addition, what do you need to really be happy? Because we've been told that success makes us happy. But in reality, what we know from more than 100 research studies is it's the opposite is true. People who are happy first, they're happier in themselves, which means they have an optimistic view of life. When they're looking at life, they go, you know what? Even if something challenging is happening right now, I believe that we're going to get through this. Which means that rather than saying, a colleague of yours is like, here's an idea, and you're like, we did it before. It's not going to work, right? One aspect of happiness is, and I'm going to go over these in more detail, is being able to say, well, how can we? Or if you have an idea in your heart, you're like, well, I'd like to go to Paris for a month, rather than saying, oh, I can't, because I got to work. Instead, you learn mindset techniques, and you go, well, how can I? What's possible? What else is possible? Happier people, so let's talk about it. Happier people who know what activities they love. I've recently discovered how much I love dancing. Does anyone else love dancing? Okay, so I now take salsa on Monday, I take belly dancing on Tuesday, and on Wednesday, I take a class that I probably shouldn't talk about here at Progressive Insurance, but it's like moving my body in a really fun way. So the point is, I'm dancing all week, right? I'm dancing all week. So we have to know what actually makes us happy, and rather than saying, I don't have time for that, I'm too tired, we actually have to go ahead and go do it. No one's going to give us more time. So happier people have better relationships, they have more friends, they have better marriages and longer marriages. Happier people get promoted more. Why do happier people get promoted more? They're always trying to solve problems, solutions, right? They're the people, like, someone I know was just telling me a story of someone who started working at a Napa, like a car auto parts supply, and whenever the shipment would come in, all the employees would like run away because no one wanted to unpack the boxes, and he decided he was going to be a yes, I'll do it person. So the shipment comes in, and somebody's got to unpack the boxes, and everybody's like running to the bathroom, and he's like, I'll do it. And then the customer comes in, and everybody's wanting to go on break, and he's like, I'll do it. The guy ends up like 21, skyrocketing 4 jobs within a matter of a year. Why? Because we like those people. Why else do happier people get promoted more? Yeah, they're more likely to try. People like working with them. Happier people get better customer evaluations. Have you ever bought something from someone just because you liked them and you really didn't need what they had to buy? Like a Girl Scout cookie? You didn't need the extra box of Thin Mints. You bought one yesterday, but then the cute person comes on, oh, can we buy? Yeah, okay, I'll buy it, right? So happier people get promoted more. How many of you are in sales? Okay, this should be everybody raising their hands because we all sell. I don't care what you do because you're selling your ideas to the person in the next department. You're selling your team's capabilities. We're all selling all the time, okay? Happier people, are you ready for this? Happy people sell 37% more. Yeah, this is insanity, right? So why do happier people sell more? Why do happier people sell more? People like them, right? It's the Girl Scout cookie effect. Why else?
They motivate people.
They motivate people, right? I'm going to show you that all of your dreams can be fulfilled by, doing this. Also, happier people are optimistic. You get a no, that idea is not going to work. You go, okay, let me hear you out on that. Oh, and then you find another way. You keep going. Sales, they say what? You have to get like 18 no's until you get a yes. So when you are optimistic, when you believe, you keep saying, how can I, how can I, how can I? A few statistics, just to if I haven't sold you yet. Happier people are more productive. Happier people make companies more profitable. Happier people get higher customer reviews. Happier people get better supervisor evaluations. Happier people, anyone here in HR or the systems that you work on are in HR? Okay, this is amazing. Happier people are absent less from work. Less turnover. So there's bottom line company results when we work with people to actually be their happiest self. So it's not that success is going to make you happier, it's that happiness is going to lead to success. I was giving a talk to teenagers recently, and giving this talk, and this girl came up to me and she said, thank you so much, because I'm about to go off to college next year, and my mom told me she wants me to major in accounting, and I just hate accounting. But I'm going to tell her you came and spoke to me. I go, oh, God. Don't tell her where I live, Because you can be successful in any career you choose. She can be successful. I don't care if she chooses, horse training or something, because somebody's making money training horses. It may as well be her. So we need to be happy first, and then the success will come. It's the difference between, are you every day in survival mode? Like, how many of you, let's think about what does your morning look like? You wake up, who checks their email, right, first thing? Who scrolls through Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn first thing, right? Or you're like, oh my God, okay, I gotta get up, I gotta shower, I gotta get the kids, right? Like we're in survival mode. We're in survival mode. Do you know that when your brain is stressed, it actually atrophies? Like, over time, you're actually losing brain mass. And so we live in a world that's constantly going to try to make you unhappy, and we have to do the things. It's the difference between survival, just making it through at a 0 or a +2, and a +8, +9. So there's this question, is it a choice? How many of you think it's a choice to be happier? Yes, raise your hand. How many of you are like, yeah, I don't know. Doesn't really seem like it because you don't know what my ex-wife is like, Not really. You should see my boss, who I'm sure is not in the room because you're all lovely. Here's what we know from research. Twins who were separated at birth, not by their own choice, twins who were separated at birth and then reunited later, number of studies are always done with these people to understand what's the difference between nature and nurture. And here's what we now know. There is an aspect of your overall happiness, your ability to be happy, that is genetic. But what that does is give us what we call a genetic set point, which means you could be here, or you could be here, or you could be here. But it's always a range, right? And then somebody might say, yeah, but Karen, you don't understand. Like, I was born in this color of skin, and so my life is much more difficult. Or I was born a woman, or I'm Jewish, and look, somebody went, shooting into a synagogue last weekend, and right. So like all the different situations, or my grandparents were Holocaust survivors. Talk about life circumstances, right? What they actually found from the research is that only about 10% of your overall happiness has to do with your life circumstances. Why? Because how many of you know someone who has been through horrific life circumstances and they still came out and they feel purposeful and they feel fulfilled and they feel happy and they are a person spreading joy? How many of you know someone like that? Yeah, I have that model. It's my grandparents. Never complained a day about what happened to them, or about the fact that my grandfather lost his parents, or that my grandmother had to come to this country when she spoke no English as a teenager alone. They were so happy. So happy. So we have proof right there that it's not our life circumstances. So anybody who's like, oh, and listen, I told you, I was divorced once. I'm like, no, it's his fault, I'm miserable. I tried to blame him. Let her believe it, right? So our life circumstances only account for a teeny bit. Really, our voluntary controlled activities are the difference in your set point. Are you going to be at the top or are you going to be at the bottom? So it's really a matter of choice. It's a matter of choice. Are you going to be at the top of your range? Are you going to be at the bottom of your range? So what do you have control over in your life? I wish I had a whiteboard up here. What are choices you could make? How you respond, right? I'm not saying this is easy, but how do you respond when your kid just won't do their homework? You don't understand. I'm the hardest day. Just give me a bottle of beer. Like how do we respond? What else do we have control over? Attitude, how we think. How do I walk into work every single day? Am I walking like, oh, it's another day and I have to go to work? How many of you have to work at Progressive? No, actually you don't. Last I checked, no one is handcuffed. Any of you handcuffed to this place? No. It's a great place to work. But you actually don't have to. In our society, do you have to make money? I mean, unless you want to be like, the guy that lived in Central Park for a year with nothing. You could be that guy. But if you want to live in our society, do you need money? Yes. But you get to choose what? Where and how. Where and how. What else do you get to choose?
Who we surround ourselves with.
Who do you surround yourselves with? I asked you, how many of you have the negative Nelly in your life? Do you answer the phone every time they call? Do you hang on to the friend that is just constantly saying, I'm not saying you shouldn't support your friends when they're going through rough things, of course. But I'm saying the person who wants to take you down with them, who wants to tear you apart. What else do we have control over? How we spend our free time. You're like, what free time? That is a choice too. Because what do you schedule first? What do you schedule first? Work. I'm not saying you shouldn't love your work, but let me tell you, I do not take any appointments during my favorite yoga class. Zero, zilch, none. I don't. That's not negotiable. Not negotiable. I mean, if somebody gets sick or whatever, what do you schedule first? Your self-care should be scheduled first. You got to know about yourself. What do you need to fill yourself up? We all need physical exercise, but how many of you are scheduling it, or you're just trying to throw it in at the end of the day? No. We got to schedule it. No one's going to give you an extra hour of the day. You got to take it. Now, how many of you, let's just be honest, how many of you spend about a half-hour a day scrolling through social media? So none of you people raising your hand can tell me you don't have time to do something you love, because there's a half hour right there. What else? What else do we have control over? The goals you set for yourself. You shouldn't hide. You're being honest with yourself that you've always wanted to write a book. But oh, no, who am I? I can't do it. Yes, you can do it. That's what a weekend is for. That's what a 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock alarm clock is for. Yes, you can. What else? What you eat? How you move your body, if you move your body? You want to come to Wednesday night class with me, probably, So we have a choice. We have a choice over everything. And let me be clear about what I mean by that. We have a choice over everything. We do not have a choice over what happens to us. We have a choice over how we think about it. So let's go over what that means. Your boss sends you a text at 5 p.m. on a Friday, right? Your kid doesn't do their homework. All these things look like a saber-toothed tiger to us because the way our brain is designed, we have something called a reptilian brain, which sits at the base of our brain, and it's the part of our brain that's like, survival. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? That part of our brain leads us. If you do not control your mind will control you. How many of you think kind of negative thoughts like self-doubt, either worrying about the past, worrying about the future, or worrying about what's going on right now and self-doubt constantly? Yeah, you're not alone. Our brains have something called negativity bias. It's because for survival mechanisms, our brain is wired to think of where's the threat, what's going to go wrong, what's going to go wrong. Fortunately, with some of the tools I'm going to try to do in 3 minutes, or we kind of got started a few minutes late, so maybe we'll go a couple minutes over. We have the opportunity to exercise our human brain, our prefrontal cortex. And this is what it looks like. Number one, research shows that the negative is stronger than the positive. Okay? So you're having a great day, you went to this awesome conference, blah, 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 and all of a sudden you're driving home and someone cuts you off in traffic. Or all of a sudden you get a text that your kid has detention. What happens? Your body floods with cortisol, you get all stressed, oh my God, blah, 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 right? So what research shows is that on a one-to-one, the challenging or the stressful is actually more powerful to your body than the positive, the uplifting. So the numbers are kind of in debate right now, but you need about 3 positives for every negative to overcome it. So that means you better be, and when it comes to within your marriages, or relationships, it's more like 5-to-1. In a team, the best teams have a 6-to-1 ratio. So what kind of energy are you bringing? So we have a choice. Do you focus, and you don't have to raise your hand, but our brains are actually wired to focus on what is wrong more than what's right. Like I said, in the scientific realm, it's called negativity bias. So just think to yourself, do you focus more on what's wrong, or do you focus more on what's right? This is what I do every morning. It's called the morning jumpstart. Every morning I make a list of everything I am grateful for. Then I make a list of everything I celebrate and I'm proud of myself. I actually sometimes call it a brag. I brag about myself to myself in my journal. Brag about the great talk I created. I brag about being with a friend. I brag. I celebrate myself. And then I focus on what am I excited about in the day to come. And you can have a day where you're not excited about anything. But then be excited about the end of the day when you get to go back to bed. This is stuff that we are totally in control over. And if you think I've got nothing in my life that you're grateful for, did the toilet flush today? Because we only notice it doesn't flush when? It doesn't flush. Here's the key with this one. You can't repeat the same thing every day. Most people, if I ask, what are you grateful for? They tell me my house, my health, my family. Awesome. Day 1, day 2, 3 new things. You use that once. Why? Because your brain habituates and you'll get bored of it. That means that every day you're actually thinking of this stuff and you're creating the stuff in your life that you're going to be grateful for and you're celebrating and it's fun. So you got to get specific. The brain loves specifics. Number 2, how many of you, if I say, what are you proud of, you're going to go, my kids. Awesome. You get that once, okay? When I ask you what you're celebrating, what you're proud of, I actually want to hear what you did. I want to hear what you did. What did you do to make that kid so awesome? Why? Because we aren't spending enough time actually celebrating ourselves. So I want you to think about what choices you can make. And we already went through a couple of these. 1, you have a choice over what you think. Now, this is hard. I'm not going to tell you this is easy. This is challenging stuff. But yesterday, I got to Cleveland. The Uber driver said, have you ever been in Cleveland? I said, yeah, I lived here for 8 years. Where'd you live, Shaker Square? And then I said, he asked me something. He said, God, no, my condo, and it won't sell, and I've had it for so many years. And I'm so grateful I have a tenant. Right, so I could have focused on the fact that the market dove and my condo is like underwater and all this stuff. And I caught myself. Not always easy to do. But I caught myself and I went, you know what, and I'm so grateful I have a tenant. And I'm so grateful that it pays back the mortgage. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to do it. Right, so what do you think about? Because this is more than just kind of ho-ho self-love. Remember, I have a master's degree from an Ivy League university. This stuff is scientific. We know from science, however you think, right? You hear me say, I want to go to Paris, and you're like, well, I've always wanted to go to Japan. And then you go, I don't have any money, I can't do it. How does that make us feel? We bend over, we get depressed, we feel bad, okay? Then what are you gonna do? You're just forget it. Your behavior reinforces it. Instead, you go, you know what? I can go to Japan one day. I just can't go yet. I'm gonna go to Japan in 2 years. Now how do you feel? You feel awesome about yourself. You feel excited. Now what behavior do you take? You start saving up. Well, you start thinking of ideas. Maybe I could save $50 a month. Stop going to Starbucks, $50 a month. Okay, that's how much I spend at Starbucks a month. And now I can start saving up the money. How you think, literally you have a choice every single day what you think about. Are you thinking of things when things that are challenging come up, either in your team or personally? Are you seeing it as, well, that will never work, this will never happen, or something adverse happens? Like the gun robbery for me. Do I let that take me down, or do I let it shoot me back up and say, I have a choice, and I'm gonna see that I'm gonna choose to think about this as the moment that I realize that life is short and I can do anything that I want. So what we know about optimistic people matters. You've got to exercise your mind as hard or harder than your body. You got to exercise your mind, because if you don't control your mind will control you. Actually, emotions, it's like Kevin Bacon, the 6th degree of separation, except emotions have 3 degrees of separation. If you feel really great coming out of here today, you are now going to go home, and let's say whether it's your dog or it's a human that's there, you're going to be in better mood, and now what happens to that person? They're in a better mood. And then they run out to the grocery store, and even though they're waiting in line, when they come up to the cashier, what's their exchange like with the cashier? Happier. Research actually shows that happiness has 3 degrees of separation every time you choose to increase your own level of well-being with any of the tools that we're talking about. You are increasing the well-being of up to 3 people beyond you. Emotions are contagious, and so you have a choice. You have a choice. Every time you walk in the doors, what do you want to be feeling or thinking? What are you going to pass on to the people that you work with? What energy, what attitude, what emotion are you going to pass on to them? We can do this. My team is great. What are you going to pass on? Because every single one of us, and now I'm really over, but I'm done. Every single one of us has our own superpower. And that rests in this. There are no 2 people in this room who have the same strengths of character, right? You guys did a whole strengths thing. There are no 2 people who have the same strengths. But I even mean some of you are going to be particularly creative, and some of you are going to be particularly kind, and some of you are really great at appreciating beauty. No 2 people have the same strengths. And even if they do, now you say the people have the same strengths, they don't have the same talents. Some of you are going to be great at writing, and some of you are going to be great with numbers. And then you take those people, and no one has the same passions as you. What are you passionate about? What would you literally spend your free time on, or not care if you were being paid? Because you just care that much about it. Give yourself a half hour a week to actually do, volunteer with something. What are you passionate about? Or if you're passionate about shoes, great, go spend time in Nordstrom, whatever it is. And the 4th thing is, no one has lived your life. You can even take 2 twins, and they have different superpowers. Why? Because they each have different life experience. And your life experience is what gives you the wisdom and the purpose that is going to help somebody else. What you have lived is going to help somebody else, and the more you give that back, the happier you are going to be. Because each of us has a purpose on this great earth. Each of us has a purpose, and it's not about being an accountant or working at Progressive. It's about what you do at Progressive. I don't mean the physical thing the actual thing that's in your job description. I mean, what energy are you bringing here? I mean, how are you bringing your strengths? I mean, how are you helping your colleagues? How are you passing on attitude? That's your purpose. To give your wisdom, your strengths, your passion here or anywhere. And each of us has a purpose. And so I want to thank you for letting me live mine. Because of you, I get to live my great purpose. And even though I was robbed down the street at gunpoint and thought I was about to lose my life, that moment let me be here and stand in front of you and tell you that whatever it is that you would regret if you had that gun to your head, you can do it, and that you need to do it now. So thank you.